Hi there friends, and welcome to my beginner's food guide for Valheim. I'm Icon, and this video will guide you through everything you want to know about the topic food, cooking, and how to sustain food, where to use food, and I will talk about basically everything I have learned and discovered so far about this topic. So, before we get started, let's talk about how food works in general. Food is allocated to 3 slots right next to your HP bar. You see there are 3 squares and everyone can hold a unique type of food. You won't be able to eat 3 pieces of meat, 3 yellow mushrooms or something like that. They have all to be unique foods. Food increases your max HP, your max stamina, and your HP regeneration. Without food, you won't be starving, but your HP will be very, very low, and you won't be regenerating any HP whatsoever. So you need to eat if you want to survive in combat situations or regenerate up. Food comes in what I personally call 3 tiers. The first tier is raw food, stuff you can just pick from the ground, like blueberries, raspberries, mushrooms. They can all be eaten directly and offer quite average stats, as you see here. Mushrooms offer some health, some stamina, and a low amount of healing. Most of the raw foods don't really do much in terms of healing and things like these, but they sure get you through the time, and they are pretty much the first types of food you will encounter and use in the game. The second tier is what I called cooked foods, which can be cooked over a fireplace. A fireplace is always available once you have a few stones in your pocket, which I don't. But let me fetch those stones while I keep talking. A fireplace can be built wherever you want. There's no limit to a workbench or such with a fireplace. You can always just go wherever you want to and lay down a campfire. Keep in mind that with a campfire, if you dismount it, you will get back your stones, but not your wood, because you use that as a kindling. When you want to cook over a fireplace, let's get rid of that gray dwarf real quick, you will need to use these cooking stations. Oh, come on, you. You weren't invited here. There's no food for you. Like, seriously. Alright. So, cooking stations can be mounted 2 over 1 fire pit. It's worth mentioning that you can always put 2 of them over another, like this. And here you can process raw meat, necktails, and raw fish. These can be just hung on these cooking stations. You'll hear a sizzle first, a sizzle when they're done, and a third sizzle when they turn into coals. This is also your first way of earning coal in the game. If you want to do some early game science, you can just burn some food on those cooking stations to acquire that. Quite nifty. The third and most beneficial food, well, let's talk about tier 2 food first. Tier 2 food, like the cooked meats, offer way more health and stamina and also way more duration. If you compare the cooked meat to the mushroom, you notice quickly the health is more than double. The stamina is also, well, 1.5 times, but duration is 1,200 seconds. Compared to that, this is a huge increase of efficiency. Necktails, cooked meat, and grilled fish are, well, very powerful food if you can acquire them. Fish needs to be fished. With the fishing rod you can buy from the trader, which has this icon. You have to buy that stuff first. Catching fish without a fishing rod is possible, but it's a true pain. The third and probably most wanted way to create food is with the cauldron. The cauldron, as you see here, needs to rest above a fire pit, and here we can do real cooking. So here we only have unlocked the most basic recipes, but that's just good. I don't want to spoil it too much. Here, Queen's Jam is one cooked recipe which has basically the identical stats to cooked meat, just a little bit more of stamina, or stuff like sausages are more the things I wanted to talk about. You see here, these stats are way beyond what we've seen. The duration is quite high, and most importantly, the healing is also pretty strong. There is also a thing worth mentioning. You can grow your own carrots, turnips and such on a field like this, you will only need a brass cultivator. With carrots and turnips, you can also cook soups, which are very, very strong on the stamina side. And overall, everything which comes out of the cooking pot or the cauldron is so far the most potent food in the game. There's also fermenter items. These are basically potions. Vikings drink mead, but it works like potions. Poison resistance potions, healing potions, frost resistance potions, and so on. So that's not really cooking, so I'm not focusing into that too much. But what does that all mean? I personally got a few strategies which I want to share. How to use food. When I'm foraging, gathering stuff, gathering stones, gathering wood and all these things, I tend to avoid to eat too strongly processed foods. This is basically my food I use for everyday uses. Some cooked meat to have a little bit of the stability extra, but past that, just raw foods. I personally love to use yellow mushrooms as my foraging food because they have little to no use. There's only one or two recipes, but not too many. And also red mushrooms, because I learned that these are quite easy to acquire in abundance. So I really love to use those whenever I don't need too many HP or stamina. If you got the resources though for foraging runs, check out that you use more stamina food and less HP food, because stamina is drained harder while working than the HP, of course. The tier 2 foods like cooked meats and necktails and such things are really, really good for your first trips into areas like the swamps or even the mountains. They provide you enough HP buffer to work with these, to be not worried about anything all these threats you already can handle, or, well, like I mentioned, it's enough to get through this and also enough to get through the mountains if you know what you're doing. The foodstuffs coming out of the cauldron are ideal whenever you're up against difficult challenges or you know that you will need a lot of stamina for whatever reason. Use these as what they are: quite hard to acquire and quite difficult to craft materials, which should always receive the according respect, because just one serving of carrot soup will require your folks to grow those carrots, put them over to the cauldron. That cauldron needs to be done to begin with, and the more complicated the recipes get, the more complicated the acquisition of the materials becomes as well. For example, here sausages you need those entrails which come out of the swamp. Raw meat is the most easy part. The thistles need to be collected in the forests. This is very powerful food, but at the same time it's also very costly. So eating sausages while you're just casually chopping down trees for your next building project might be a tad bit of a waste. Just my thoughts. So I think that's all you need to know about cooking to get started with the game. And I'll summarize real quick here at the end of the video. Fire pits can be built everywhere. You can start grilling your meat wherever you stand. So if you have too much raw meat in your inventory or too many necktails, you can process them at the go. You don't need any base for that. Raw foods I prefer to use for foraging jobs, especially mushrooms are quite good at this stage of the game to be used for that. Processed foods or cooked foods should be always used according to the situation and should be always treated with the respect they needed to be created. So I hope that was somewhat helpful for you. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you feel like I've missed out something which should be definitely added, or if you have some questions about the topic, ask away. I would be happy to talk with you. Also, leave a like to that video if you found that helpful, or even a subscription if you want to check out the channel. Feel free to. Apart from that, I want to mention my Discord channel in the description below. We have a really, really nice community there, even a nice little community server. You see that here. And if you want to check out our community, I'd be welcoming you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.